trick.
Hey gang, it's me Uncle Todd here. Welcome to October, the most wonderful time of the year. As you can see, we have our Halloween tree up. We're going to start off the month with our first made-for-TV flick, The Midnight Hour. This is a film with was made around 1985, played I believe on ABC. And it had a really amazing cast, full of old favorites, up-and-comers, and some very established, or that were becoming established. I mean, you've got Kevin McCarthy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Piranha and UHF. You've got Dick Van Patten from Eight Is Enough, Westworld, the movie, not the show. And you've got Sherry Belafonte Harper, who was coming off of If You Could See What I Hear and Time Walker. You also have Joanna Lee, who was an up-and-coming actress, appeared on a lot of TV shows, and where is it? Yeah, and she was also on one of my favorite shows, although it was short-lived, Otherworld, as well as the very sad biopic Shattered Innocence, which I believe is one of her last major roles. She didn't do as much acting after that, but and on the up-and-coming section, we have both LeVar Burton, who had been on 321 Contact, and after this would go on to Star Trek The Next Generation and Reading Rainbow, and Peter DeLuise, who was only about, I think, a year away from 21 Jump Street. And of course, he was also in the second and third seasons of Sequest, DSV. So, really good cast. Oh, and I forgot Cindy Morgan, who was in Caddyshack and Tron. So, like I said, very good cast here. Thank goodness for IMDb. The film opens. We get some hijinks with like a paper boy throwing papers into bushes and things. And we're introduced to Phil, who's going to be our main character. And he wants to take out Mary, but she's not really interested. And every time he tries, he kind of gets distracted. She gets distracted by her friend Melissa. And then we get into the crux of it, which is Phil gives a presentation to the class. They were in high school, even though I believe Sherry Belafonte Harper was like 30 at the time. But they did that a lot back in the 80s and 90s. And he tells about the history of Halloween in, what is the name of this town? Pitchford Cove, which, because of the history, was referred to as Pitchfork Cove.
Powerful. All the legendary demons of hell were loose, and the dead with unfinished business on earth came back from the grave. But no one knows how he did it. Nathaniel Grenville, the witch hunter general, as he was later called, put an end to the curse at midnight on Halloween, and all the demons were laid to rest, all except Lucinda, who was hung in the town square in the early morning hours following Halloween.
So, basically, Phil's great-great-great-grandfather condemned Melissa's great-great-great-great-grandmother to death, but she laid a curse on the town that someday they would return and the demons would run free. After this, Phil's friends, Vinny and Mitch, come up with an interesting idea. And they, along with Phil, Mary, and Melissa, break into the Pitchford Theater Museum, I should say, to steal the clothes from those two, the witch hunter and the witch, for the Halloween party. And there they find a trunk, and they think that it might be useful for props.
Put it in. Check it out. How about this truck right here? That's the Grenville coat of arms.
Well, maybe it was his summer camp trunk.
Here, open it up.
Yeah, let's put the stuff in here.
Hey, I still don't have a costume for the party. Maybe there's a 38 regular in here someplace.
So, being it's a horror film, they crank up the Halloween music that Wolfman Jack is playing on the radio. He'll be playing that throughout the film. They head to the cemetery, where, going through the trunk, they find Nathaniel's ring, which Mitch or Vinny? These people are Mitch. I keep confusing people's names. Mitch takes the ring and puts it on. And they also find a scroll, which Melissa, as Lucinda's ancestor, distant relative, decides to read.
Come heed my bidding on this night of nights, the eve of Samhain, All Hallows Eve. Spirits of darkness, I command you to rise from your graves. Et lavabis saga me. All manner of demons, I implore your release from eternal torment. Castigus saga me.
Yeah, that's not going to end well. But after that, they pack everything up and head out to get ready for the party. Meanwhile, the incantation has done its work, and it's raised Lucinda, zombies, demons, werewolves, and a cheerleader? That's Sandy. She'll become important later. Phil, who gets his costume together, sort of a David Bowie-esque vampire type glam rocker thing.
Open them.
Bodacious.
All right.
On the way to the party, Phil runs into Sandy, and he's a little infatuated with her, although he still has his heart set on Mary. And he does invite her to the party, but she's looking for her old house, so they part ways. Meanwhile, Mitch has a very angry argument with his father, who's a judge, over the fact his father knows he stole his costume from the museum. After Mitch leaves and the judge yells at some trick-or-treaters, he is attacked by a revived man he's sentenced to death. And a local man who was hired to supply extra security, law enforcement, or whatever around town because of it's Halloween is attacked by the werewolf. As you all know, what happens when you get attacked by a werewolf? Guess his dogs didn't appreciate the new hymn. But let's move on to the party, where we get lots of fun shenanigans of party stuff, like actual zombies showing up and scarfing down popcorn. Melissa kind of pushing Vinny off, even though they're dating, but she's just not into him anymore. And poor Phil, trying to get a dance with Mary, only she's more interested in the guy dressed as Frankenstein, because he's a hunk. And Lucinda shows up and does the substitute teacher who asks for some wine, because she's a chaperone. And Lucinda goes to help Melissa find some. Yep, Alyssa's been vampirized. Well, getting back to Phil and his problems, he's developed a rash from his makeup and wig. And being depressed, because Mary is spending all her time with other guys, he leaves and strips off the makeup, where he runs into a rather despondent Sandy, who has found that everything she knows about her old town is gone, because she's from the 50s. And they talk, and they decide they're going to hang together. Meanwhile, back at the party, Melissa kind of gives Vinny what he's been wanting. While the vampirism slowly works its way through the party, Sandy treats Mitch to the best date he's ever had. She talks him into drag racing a couple of guys at a stoplight. They have a slow dance to a nice little musical ballad on the radio. And then they go off to Lookout Point, which nobody ever goes to anymore, and make out in the back seat. But unfortunately, they're interrupted. Phil is a man of action now, and he quickly takes care of the werewolf. Well, what are you going to do? The obvious thing is go report this to the police. But the sheriff and his deputy are less than enthused about this.
Does werewolves, vampires, zombies, goblins, and little green men add up to let's all have fun with the cops?
Come on, Phil. I told you the fuzz wouldn't believe us.
Well, of course not. It's Kurtwood Smith. He never believes anything kids have to say. Red Foreman, you are missed. Anyway, outside the police station, Phil tells Sandy all about the ritual, what happened, and Sandy informs him that they need to get the scroll and the ring, reseal it before 12 a.m. or the demons will not be able to be returned to the grave. He wants to know how she knows this, but she'll tell him later. So they go back to his house to get the scroll and to get some necessary supplies from his dad's dentist office. Meanwhile, back at the party, Mitch's zombie dad shows up to give him some much needed discipline. We then get treated to an attempt by the filmmakers to outdo Thriller.
Everybody should try to get
Yeah, not so much. Phil and Sandy have arrived at his house, and Sandy gets the scroll while Phil uses the silver in his dad's office to coat some bullets, and has an unfortunate discovery. Not Dick Van Patten. Well, they evade him and then head through an overrun town to get to the party.
all manner of demons, all manner of dead.
Maybe if we just go real slow, they won't notice us.
Be real quiet.
Well, they finally make it to the party where they find that everybody is either a vampire or a zombie, and they get chased. But they do manage to get the ring off Mitch. I am so glad he's so thoughtful of his friend that he wouldn't chop off the zombie finger. You the man, Phil. So, they race back to the car, where they find the substitute teachers hiding in the back. So they take her along to the cemetery. But anyone who's been a horror fan for any time, even 5 minutes, knows what's going to happen with that substitute teacher.
Okay, back up.
Look out! They must have got her back at the house.
You know, to be honest, I thought that was going to take a little more effort to... I guess new vampires are easy to kill. Anyway, they manage to get into the crypt. They grab up some of the ashes of Nathaniel so that they can mix it with the wax and reseal the scroll. Unfortunately, the matches were left in the car. And so heading back to the car while they're being attacked, they make sure that the Chekhov rules about guns are followed. If you're going to show a guy making silver bullets, you got to show him using those bullets. Well, they get back to the car and then are surrounded by all the demons and zombies and vampires, and they're all trying to get in. And in a bittersweet moment, the ritual's completed.
Goodbye, Phil.
And everyone's gone. Even Sandy. Phil looks around and he does find where Sandy went.
Love you too, Sandy.
But before you get too depressed, as Phil turns on the radio in his car to drive back to town, Wolfman Jack had gotten a sudden dedication from Sandy to Phil. Barbara Lewis's "Baby, I'm Yours." And with a bittersweet smile on his face and putting the top down on his convertible car, he drives back to what I assume is the town returned to normal and everybody that was killed is alive again. I assume they don't actually show. But that's the midnight hour. It's a pretty decent TV movie. There's a little bit of blood in it, but not a lot. And there is some scary stuff in it, but I think it's a pretty good film for older children, not really young ones, but junior high age, maybe a little younger. It's got a great cast, as I said. Very well acted. The romance between Phil and Sandy is rather sweet. And, but, most great romances always end in tragedy. Romeo and Juliet. Escape from Planet of the Apes. That's just how that works. But it's a fun little flick. It's not up to like the caliber of like The Night Stalker, but it's nothing anyone should be ashamed of. Although that dance number is a little iffy. But if you get a chance to see it, I think you'll be entertained. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. And as always, stay after for my favorite scene.